Okay, so once we have those elevation symbols on the floor plan, we're definitely going to give them their own layer later on. I just want to make sure that we uh, are on the same page when it comes to the steps that we're taking. So assigning the elevation means that I'm looking this word and I'm looking this way, and looking this way forward means that this is basically the elevation. Now, there are no elevation that are going to take into account the walls, meaning that I'm actually looking at whatever that is between the wall. So some of you will have that front elevation, others might have this elevation on that side. So what to do at the time? If that's the case, if your elevation on that side, or you have a U-shape elevation and you're going to want to start with one that is here or another one that is here, what to do? Now you can take a look at our views here, and our views here are going to enable us to. I know that this is the north side, and this is the east and west and south because of how that is positioned. But then again, I can click here on those two arrows. So I'm going to click here. And if I click on that arrow, I can actually take a look exactly at this elevation. And this is one of the things that I will be doing, is that I will take, okay, the inside of that room or that side of the kitchen and extend lines below to be able to get an elevation of that side of my kitchen. Okay, so it's just by clicking on those two arrows that you're going to be able to get elevations, and the elevation should actually be placed here. So if I click here and I want to get an elevation here, or probably I'm going to be doing a section later, this is basically where I'm going to be taking vertical lines or extending vertical lines that are falling on a horizontal line that is going to be my ground or my floor that will be meeting with the floor, and this is how I'm going to be creating the elevation. So in the by using those, it is expected that your elevation are going to be flipped on the sides. That's how and then we're definitely going to be showing you how you're going to be placing those, or how you're going to be rotating those if you want to, so we can place them next to each other on sheet number 2. Okay, so but it depends on which elevation you want to take first. In my case, this is the first elevation that I want to take, and I actually intentionally put the floor line, which is here. I'm just going to extend this a little bit forward. I'm going to extend this a little bit forward as well. I had to make sure that the distance between the elevation and where the kitchen starts and ends is is really somewhere as far enough as possible from the kitchen. Okay, so don't try to make or to cramp the to crowd the areas around the kitchen floor plan. We want the elevation to be placed as far as possible. Now, as far as possible doesn't mean that it goes off the screen, but if I zoomed in something like that, I can actually find the 4 or 3 or 2 elevations within this area here. So try to make a good judgment when you are going to be placing the distance. Also, one of the things about the elevations is what is the height of the ceiling. So the height of the ceiling that I used here, from here, let me just click and make sure that I have endpoint on, because I have a soffit drop down, which is somehow like a ceiling, a false ceiling. I have this is about 2388 millimeters, so it's about 2 meter. That's the height that I have. So it just depends on how high your ceiling is. All right, your ceiling might be higher than this, 3 meters or higher up. I think my ceiling should have been a little bit upward, but the idea is you should actually make sure that the ceiling is in accordance with the ceiling height that you have. Okay, some people would say that it's 10 feet you need to make the calculation. You can definitely make the calculations by going to any conversion website and convert the 10 feet to meters and see how this is in millimeters. So it's really up to you how you're going to be going with the ceiling height. For example, I'm just searching right now on my phone. Now this from 10 feet, from feet to inches. How much is this going to be? So if I have 10 feet and if I have millimeters, so 10 feet would be 3048. So if your ceiling is 10 feet, then you will put here 3048 as the ceiling height, considering of course that you already have or already know where your floor line is. And as we said, we need the floor line where the elevation is going to be placed on to be as far as in a considerable way from where the kitchen is. Now, if your ceiling is 9 feet, this means that probably it's 2,743. Mine is a little bit in between. Okay, mine actually needs to be a little bit bigger because yeah, my ceiling is 9 feet high, so this should be increased up a little bit. So in other words, the ceiling height is something that you will figure out depending on the ceiling that you have. But of course, the first thing that you need to do is to create the floor line. Now, people used to do all sorts of things when it came to creating the elevation. But one of the most known method is that you're going to be extending line from this. For example, I'm looking this way, and then I'm going to be extending line from here and extending line from here. And those are going to be the lines that are containing my first elevation. Lines can be daunting to be seen when you have a space like that. So in AutoCAD, there's something else here. So if you click on draw here, you're going to find that in the draw menu on that side, there is something called Dray, and there's something next to it called construction line. Now, construction line, if I click on one, if I click on the icon, it's going to ask you to specify a point or horizontal or vertical or angle or bisect or offset. Actually, the one that we need is vertical because I'm going to have a construction line created that is vertical for extending it downward. So I'm just going to click on vertical, all right, and immediately you're going to have that line, created line that is almost a vertical rubber band. And we're just going to place this somewhere here. So this is basically the beginning of the elevation, all right? And this is the end of the elevation. So I'm just going to place another one here. Now make sure that to turn on endpoint, okay? So you can snap to the endpoint between the walls. So I'm just going to click like that. Now that's basically telling me, see, the lines are extending downward as we can see right now. And this is where your elevation is going to start and when your elevation is going to end. Now, how to make sure to, now, because we already have that space, we need to start hovering over and identifying where our cabinet is starting from. That's why I told you before, it might be a good idea just to make sure that you know where the cabinet's door is starting and ending, okay? So in my case here, I'm just going to hover over, this is where my cabinet, this is my drawer cabinet is going to start. I'm going to click and then I'm going to move and then I'm going to make sure again that I stop here. Now notice that there's always going to be a space between your fridge or your stove and the nearby kitchen island or a kitchen counter or the cabinet. So you need to account for that space. So I'm just going to do that. And if I zoom out, I can see that this is exactly where my kitchen cabinet is. I already have drawn my elevation, but I'm just going to show you how I actually drew that elevation. So we have one line here coming up and another line coming up from here. all right? And the line is still in continuous, is still continuing with me. So I can actually hover over. Now here is where I have a filler between, there is a small filler, which is a piece of wood when you don't have there is a small gap between the cabinet and the nearby appliance or cabinet. So we use a filler. So I'm just going to click here, and then I'm going to click here. Okay, and then I'm going to click where the sink starts. There's a cabinet here. There's a cabinet here. Make sure that you just snap to the endpoint of the cabinets. All right, and then I'm going to snap here to the end of my cabinet, and then I'm going to snap to where my fridge is going to start. Okay, and here where my fridge is ending, and then right click, and there we go. So we extended all of those lines down there to our elevation. Okay, now there might be a little bit, there is definitely room. I mean, if my fridge is a little bit off, that's fine. I can get it back where I want it to. But for now, the most important thing is that we extended the lines that we wanted into the elevation. All right. Now, the next step is we need to start taking the right measurement. So we extended those lines. We already have, this is the line for the ground, and this is the line for the ceiling. So I want to make sure that after taking the ceiling height, for me, for example, I'm just going to go with hover over one of these points here. And now notice one thing is that there is no intersection. Those lines are not really going to intersect with anything. So one of the things that I'm going to be doing is that I'm going to right click and click on intersection, and then hover over this point here. So this is one of the furthest to the side of the construction lines. And then I'm going to click, and then I'm going to go up, making sure that I turn off the OSNAP. And then I'm going to type in the ceiling height. In my case, it's 2743, because that's about the ceiling height, which is about 9 feet. And I'm going to click enter. And this is actually my ceiling height up there. Now, if I want to stop, I'm just going to right click again. I'm going to click here on the OSNAP, right click, and make sure that perpendicular is on. And this is where my ceiling is. So right after you bring in all of the construction lines, you will need to start taking the height, okay, from any side that you want, any side of the elevations that you want to mark where the ceiling is going to stop from as it's distant from as the distance between the floor and the ceiling. Okay, so construction line using the construction line that lives here under draw, and bringing all of the lines that you will need later. Okay, and then after that there is a floor line. The floor line we're going to take as I did before, using line command, just hovering over here where the first construction line of the elevation is meeting with the floor. Now going up with type in the required measurement depending on the ceiling, and then do a horizontal line. So you're marking exactly where your where everything is using construction lines. So that's the first part. Okay, you know, just making sure that all of the cabinets, everything that you're bringing down is in proper location.